With more than 30,000 scientific journals worldwide actively publishing, choosing where to publish can feel like an impossible task. Thankfully, you only need to choose between a handful of these for your research to reach the right audience. Here are 7 things that you should consider when choosing a scientific journal. Link in the description for the full blog article. First up, readership and target audience. It is way too easy to fixate on vanity metrics like impact factor or other journal metrics. But at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is that your research paper is seen by the right kind of audience. Long before you consider mega journals like Nature or Science, you should ask yourself, who do I want to see this research? Who would cite this research if they were writing a paper of their own? And what kind of researchers would find this interesting? Odds are, even if your research were impactful enough to submit to an elite journal like Nature or Science, it would gain more citations in the long run being published in a journal that serves it to the correct audience. Specialist journals often have smaller readerships. However, those readerships are comprised of specialist readers who would find discipline-specific studies like yours of interest. Generalist journals, on the other hand, usually have very large readerships, but they're better suited to cross-disciplinary studies that can't be encompassed by a single field. Whichever you decide to go for, make sure you go for quality over quantity. This is what's actually going to get you citations. The second thing that you should consider is historical reputation. Much like readership, a journal's historical reputation can have a large impact on whether your study will be seen or not. Journal metrics aren't static. That's just the reality. They rise, they fall, the ebbs and flows of which are often dictated by swings in what's popular at the time, not to mention the turnover of journal editorial staff. For example, American Naturalist has practically been furniture in the house of evolutionary biology since the 1800s, and it boasts a reasonable impact factor of 4.8. However, their impact factor has recently taken a dive and has dropped down to 2.8. Does that mean you shouldn't consider publishing with them? Of course not. American Naturalist is very respected by ecologists and evolutionary biologists all over the world, and so you should be proud to have your paper published between its covers. Considering a journal's historical reputation helps avoid fixating on volatile journal metrics like impact factor. And that ironically brings us to point 3 that you should consider when choosing where to publish: journal metrics. Look, it wouldn't be a conversation about journal selection if we didn't include journal metrics. It's just an impossible topic to avoid. Journal impact factor gets a lot of flack in the academic arena. The contention largely revolves around whether impact factor is really a good measure of academic rigor and merit. Some journals have elected not to display their impact factors for this reason. Fortunately, other journal metrics exist, like Elsevier's Cite Score or Simago Journal Rank. These encompass larger time windows than impact factor does. They also weigh the importance of citations in terms of where they originate from. Regardless of whether impact factor is a good metric or not, it's impossible to avoid it playing a role in your publication history, so don't avoid it. The fourth thing to consider is the article type that you are wanting to publish. Papers come in all shapes and sizes, from everything as small as brief reports to as large as a full-scale review. Most journals publish standard original articles, but if you've written a special format paper like a large review or a synthesis piece or maybe a perspectives piece, then your choice of journals may be a little bit more restricted. It's also worth considering journals that publish non-primary article types. For example, Nature Reviews only publishes reviews, perspectives, or research highlights. The fifth thing that you need to consider before choosing a scientific journal is turnaround time and publication frequency. You need to consider how quickly you need this research published. Turnaround times vary pretty substantially among journals. Some will offer you rapid publication for a fee, and others will take months just to get through the review process. By the way, be prepared for that. It's not unusual for your paper to take 2, 3, even 4 months to come back from review. If time is of the essence, you may want to consider journals that have shorter turnaround times or publish more frequently. The sixth thing that you need to consider when choosing where to publish is publishing model. Traditionally, publishing houses used to charge their readers to read scientific papers, and this would cover the cost of publication and obviously turn them some profit. But over time, this received widespread criticism, mainly because you can't really complain about people being scientifically illiterate when you hide all of the scientific literature behind a paywall. And this led to the rise of the open access publishing model. Open access makes your work freely available for anyone to read anywhere, anytime, but it costs. You as the author will have to pay an article processing charge, and these can be quite hefty. That being said, Open access can seriously increase the visibility and citation rate of your work, especially in fields where accessibility is really important. If you're unsure about which publishing model to go with, perhaps consider a journal that is hybrid. Hybrid journals allow you to choose between open access or traditional. The seventh and final thing that you need to consider is funding. Now, this relates directly to the article processing charge that we just discussed. If you have funding, you can probably cover this with your funds and it shouldn't be an issue, and you can benefit from using open access. However, if you don't have funding, you're going to have to pay this out of your own pocket, and that's probably not something you want to do. APCs can range from a few $100s to a few thousand. So make sure to do your research before you submit and check whether you can cover the cost of that APC with your funding. Another thing to consider is, does the journal offer waivers or discounts for people from developing countries or those without funding? Or will your institution cover the cost of the APC? I just want to add in a bonus tip here. You need to avoid predatory journals. Predatory journals will promise you a very quick turnaround with little to no review for a very high APC. If you're unsure whether a journal is predatory or not, you can check it on Beall's list. This is a list of journals that have been flagged by the community as predatory or potentially predatory. Choosing the right journal involves far more than just picking the highest impact factor and shooting your shot. By considering the factors that we've covered in this video, you can ensure that your work reaches the right audience and gets the recognition that it deserves. Now that you've chosen the right journal, consider getting your manuscript professionally edited by a publishing expert. Professional editing can seriously increase your chances of acceptance. Check out the range of editing services that we offer at Rudu Consulting in the description below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao.